He had some of the jurors laughing, by the way. The male jurors were definitely engaged and laughing. And then, he talked about...
What do they say? If they're laughing, they're not convicting.
He killed it. He dismembered the RICO. Game over. Game over.
Game over.
Game over.
Damn.
I've always said this from the beginning. These assistant U.S. attorneys, they can't match, they can't compete with no Mark Agnifilo.
Boy, what's going on today in the court, the Diddy trial. We're entering closing arguments, and from everything I'm hearing, Mark Agnifilo destroyed the feds in their case, their RICO case against Sean Diddy Combs. Listen, I've said it all along. I've maintained the fact that I thought the feds overcharged Diddy. A lot of what they were talking about him running a criminal organization was preposterous. It was extra. Now, since the defense has rested and didn't bring any witnesses, Mark Agnifilo gets to have his Johnny Cochran moment. A lot of people were on here reacting to it. Shout out to the podcast with Soul. He was in the courtroom.
He killed it. He dismembered the RICO. He said, man, he says, I can't believe, I didn't take no notes, but to the effect of what he was saying, I can't believe we here talking about a RICO case. I can't believe we talking about a RICO case. He says this is he says Cassie and Puffy, they were swingers.
Yeah.
He didn't run away from none of that. He killed it, man. He killed it. Everything, nothing of what that girl said yesterday, it doesn't even matter. And he be everywhere. He got the microphone. Yesterday, we saw Assistant U.S. Attorney Slavic stand there and read to us like a Christmas book.
Yo, a lot of people said how bad she was on the closing for the feds, like the AUSA Slavic. She just sat there and read very non-emotional. I heard attorneys' response to it, and a lot of them said the same thing that he's saying right here. So he's right on point with how it went yesterday as opposed to how it went today. He's supposed to provide that bravado and get that information out there.
The Assistant U.S. Attorney yesterday was reading something to us that somebody gave her to read. It wasn't hers.
Right.
This was Mark Agnifilo's case. I think he's been Puffy's lawyer for a long time. He's invested in Puff. He knows the details of this case.
And you know, it's interesting because there is no cameras in the courtroom. We don't get to see this. I guess if you were in the overflow room, it would be the closest thing to it at the courthouse. But we don't get to see the turn by turn and what was actually said. We have to get it secondhand. So that's why it's great that people like the podcast with Soul, Attorney Simone Redwine, or Dennis Byron, or some of these people like that are in the courtroom. Now, that comes with another thing, because there's some other people that will tell you what happened in the case according to how they're feeling about the case. They're very biased in their opinion. And I've seen a lot of YouTube coverage that is like this. Now, say what you want to say about this guy, but he has remained his self in this. So far, just watching his coverage, he hasn't tried to stretch what is happening. So if he's saying this and then several other people are saying this, I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Maureen Comey is going to probably do the rebuttal after Mark Agnifilo is done. But who cares? It don't matter. It don't matter. Mark Agnifilo has won RICO cases.
And this guy's not only doing it, he's doing it live in front of people that are coming out there. Like he's holding court outside of the court. That's what I'm saying. It's an interesting case because this guy is out there and literally people are gathering around to watch what he's saying about what happened in the courtroom.
Agnifilo, this is what he do.
It's good.
This is what he do.
That's right.
He pulled apart the bribery. There is no bribery because no law enforcement was involved. Kidnapping. He destroyed Capricorn Clark. He destroyed Kid Cudi.
Oh yeah.
Off the top of his dome. He was coming off the top.
And that's a big difference. You pay a lot of money for that attorney, he's going to be good. He's not going to be sitting there reading prepared documents like the feds were.
Top of his dome. He had his notes.
Off the dome.
But see, them assistant U.S. attorneys are this is their occupation. They're employees. They're employees.
No
Mark
passion.
Agnifilo, this is his client. He pointed to his family. He said, Puffy, help people. Look at his family. Listen. Destroyed Kid Cudi. Destroyed Capricorn Clark. Destroyed Mia. Destroyed Cassie. There was never no... Man, he killed it, man. Mark Agnifilo brought it home, and he's talking to the juror. He walked, look, like the jury is right here, right? This is the jury's right here. Look, all the jurors is back here. What's up, man? All the jurors is back there. Mark Agnifilo did this. He walked right up to him. He ain't scared. He comes right here. Stand right here. Whoa. Hey.
Right. You got to play to the audience.
Right in front of
you got to play to the crowd.
Right
the most important people. The most important people in that room are those 12 jurors right there and the alternates, because those are the people that are going to determine whether Diddy is free or has to spend life in prison, which sounds crazy when you think about it. This is not a RICO case. That is clear. I think that is very clear.
Yesterday, she stood there like this. Then they went to the store. And then there was, listen, man.
T-spot run.
Game over. Game over.
Game over.
Game over.
Damn.
I've always said this from the beginning. These assistant U.S. attorneys, they can't match. They can't compete with no Mark Agnifilo.
Wow.
They can't compete. They're out of their league. They're out of their league. And it showed today. Today you saw a man
and see, that's the thing too. Like, there's a lot of people that bring up the fact that the feds have a high conviction rate, but they leave out the fact that the feds have a high conviction rate because a lot of people plead out. You know, like they don't actually have to face an opposing counsel who is paid for by a billionaire. So, you know, Diddy can spare no expense and get the best, right? I wasn't familiar with Mark Agnifilo before this case, but obviously he comes highly regarded because he put together a team. Not only that, he picked people out of the YSL case and was just like, let me get them. Let me put them in there. Brian Steele, Westmoreland. You know, he had all these heavy hitters, and they really did a great job. They did about as good a job as you can expect. Like I said, now it's all up to the jury.
Get in front of the courtroom and say, this is what the I do. I do high-profile RICO cases. And let me show you how it's done.
Show you how to do this, son.
And all they could do was sit there and watch. Everybody in the courtroom. Everybody. The courtroom in 26 is packed. 23B where I was packed. 23A packed. Now, the people that are anti-Puff, that want Puff to go to prison for 30 years at the age of 56, get sentenced to 30 years and do 26 years off the 30 and be 82. If he survives, he may die in prison. They want him to go to prison for a ass trial, right? They got mad. They mad. They getting up, walking out because they see Mark Agnifilo is taxing them. This is what I do.
Yeah.
You understand? I do high profile RICO. That's what I do.
That's huge.
I don't know if I could go not guilty, but I can't go guilty.
Right.
I can't. There's nothing I could go, and then he showed the tape where Puffy assaulted her at the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
And he slowed it down to show that when Puffy came around the corner in the towel, right, and threw it down, he had nothing in his hands.
Right.
But what's up, man? What's going on? But after he threw it down and he's walking away, he's got a phone in his hand. So that that Cassie took his phone.
Wow. Isn't that what I said? I said that early on. If you look back at my old videos, I promise you it's in there. But I said that this was a fight between two addicted people, and you don't just haul off and beat somebody for wanting to leave a freak off. And that's what the narrative that everybody has been pushing about what happened in the videotape in the hotel with Cassie. I said, she has some of his belongings. He's talking about, Mark Agnifilo brought up the fact that the cell phone he grabbed from Cassie, he took back into his room, was his own. But if you look closely in the video, there's also a bag that is over there, a Louis bag. And what's in that Louis bag? A lot of people have suspected there's money, jewelry, and rugs that belong to P. Diddy. So now reframe that fight, whatever you want to call it, ass whooping, and put it in those terms. You're going away from here with my phone. That's huge. If Mark Agnifilo dropped that on the court, then it's going to be hard for jurors to then say that he was just some type of monster that was out here. Of course, you shouldn't put your hand on a woman under any circumstances. But what happens if that person has some of your personal belongings? Does that change things? This is, of course, Lauren Conlon, who did get a little twisted up the other day, I believe, in the whole dropping of charges. The feds actually streamlined the charges, which is a little different. They wanted to kind of focus what they had and see if they could get him on those charges instead of the wide range of charges that they had originally. It's also a strategy, I think, that they used to bring in some details that the jury would not have been able to hear otherwise.
The Cassie beating at the Intercontinental Hotel, it's just incorrect. This wasn't a kidnapping. This was, this is obviously unfortunate domestic violence, but it's a misdemeanor, which is not entirely correct. His point was this shouldn't be a federal crime. And he kept calling it a fake trial. And he had some of the jurors laughing, by the way. The male jurors were definitely engaged and laughing. He talked about...
What do they say? If they're laughing, they're not convicting. You got to keep them entertained. You got to keep them alert. I think that's a great strategy.
Mia and the forced labor charge, and he said that that it wasn't accurate that he assaulted Mia, because when he was kind of threatening Mia about calling him back in South Africa, he said, I'm going to tell Cassie about us. And Agnifilo said, kind of like, use your brain. If he assaulted her, why would he dangle that in front of her and say, I'm going to tell Cassie? Well, because it was consensual. And then he showed an image of one of Mia's Instagram posts where she had like the whole bad boy family and some of, but okay, let's get to Mark's closing argument. Now, he is much different than Christy Slavic. He speaks very freely to the jurors. He speaks like, you know, they're friends, and he thanked them. He thanked them profusely for their work, for how diligent they were. And then his big kind of first punchy moment here was, this trial is the tale of two trials, told by the mouths of the witnesses. One trial, the witnesses, the text messages, the videos, and the evidence, and then the other trial is told by the mouths of the prosecutors, and that's a much different trial. And then he said this case is badly exaggerated. You know, the government has the most complicated charge and the most serious charge of racketeering based on personal drug use and threesomes. So he said basically every hotel night, you know, that Sean Combs rented with his girlfriend is a federal crime scene.
Right.
And then he talked about how many people were moved by Sean Combs and how many witnesses got on the stand and testified that they loved him and that they learned so much from him business-wise, and how, you know, Mia was or talked about being when she thought she was going to get fired. And then he brought up Derek Ferguson, the CFO, who was very impressive with his you know, business degree from Harvard, UPenn, Stuyvesant for high school. And he said, you know, a man like that learned from Sean Combs. So, you know, this is not a criminal enterprise. This is legitimate businesses here. And, you know, he also said, like, Sean Combs was doing DEI in 1993 when no one told him to. So, again, the government saying this is a racketeering enterprise, like all of his businesses. And he said the words, "Are you kidding me?" And then he talked about the search warrants that HSI executed on his homes, and he was like very sarcastic. He was like, you know, all those boxes of Astroglide, all that baby oil, thank God that was taken off the streets. You know, the streets are much safer now. Way to go.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one, because what are we gonna do with Diddy having cases and cases of baby oil? Is that going to impact our lives and our safety? Are the streets of Miami no longer safe with Diddy on the streets and his freak-offs? How is this impacting public sentiment? How is this impacting public safety? That it needs to rise to the case, that it needs to rise to the level of a criminal enterprise. This is La Cosa Nostra. This is mafia. This is illegal, illicit. Are these on the same level? Are we seriously doing this? We know Diddy has some proclivities, but his personal life isn't necessarily what's being charged here. This criminal enterprise is. They're trying to say that Sean Combs Enterprises, Bad Boy Records, all these companies have been used for the illicit purpose of fulfilling Sean Combs's fantasies. Is that what we're doing here? Is that worth him spending life in prison? That's the question that needs to be asked. And I'm glad Mark Agnifilo is just tearing it up right now, because, I mean, like, They kind of teed it up for him, honestly, especially the contrast of one of them being kind of mousy and quiet and then him being so boisterous and loud and running all over the courtroom and talking to the jurors. Like, this is where cases are won. This is, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. This is when that happens. Mind you, Diddy was also represented by Johnny Cochran. Rest in peace to the great Johnny Cochran. Diddy was represented earlier in his career by Johnny Cochran and beat the case. We're here again. And Mark Agnifilo looks like he's trying to have his Johnny Cochran moment. That's kind of dope.
HSI, you got 5 Valium pills. Way to go.
Bye.
And then, you know, he kind of said, because that's what the
Personal
government has.
use.
They don't have racketeering. They have got baby oil. So, oh, and he also said, you know, I want to talk about Sean Combs' character. You have Jane sitting pretty on a house that he pays for.
Still,
and then
to this
Agnifilo
day.
said, is that coercion? So, he pointed to Diddy's children. He said, 6 of Sean Combs' 7 children are sitting right here today because, again, that's the kind of man he is. He loves his children. The only child that's not here is his baby daughter. So, he also mentioned that the word love was spoken love 881 times on the stand. And he talked about, Cassie, and how he said, we are owning the domestic violence with Cassie. That is not being disputed here. However, you should listen to Cassie's own words, because after the CNN video was released, she made an Instagram post that said, "Thank you for the support. Domestic violence is the issue." And he was like, she could have said forced sex is the issue, or running away from freak-offs is the issue. But no, she said domestic violence. So he said, believe Cassie, believe her, listen to what she says. He said that a few times. And he said, let's be real, it's so awful, it's so horrible, but the government was not invited in, and they don't know what happened. She was there. And he also, he said that this case is because of money and Cassie's lawsuit, and that she wouldn't have sued for $30 million if he didn't have it.
This case is about money. Tell me he's lying. Because almost everybody that testified against Sean Combs also has a civil suit against them, except for maybe like his assistant, the basketball player guy. So you're telling me that there is a financial motive. Maybe not in Cassie's case, because Cassie's already got her money, right? Mark Agnifilo is saying this case is about money. Because if Diddy loses this case, all of his assets can be seized. And that's including anything that belonged to his family members. So now his children are going to be impacted. And anybody else that he takes care of is going to be impacted, including Mia. One of the people who's testifying there, who actually is getting $10,000 a month in rent paid to this day by Sean Diddy Combs. Crazy.
And that the federal investigation stemmed from her lawsuit directly. And just jumping around a little bit, just going to the witness tampering and the obstruction, he actually said when it came to Jane that those audio messages from Sean Combs didn't sound great. However, he wasn't worried about a federal investigation. He was worried about another major civil lawsuit from someone like Jane. And so, yeah, that's really what it was. And he said, no, he was not trying to obstruct a federal lawsuit. And then I'll just finish off the obstruction aspect really quick, because he talked about how Mia, it wasn't witness tampering or obstruction when D-Rock offered her money, because the government never showed us the text messages where Mia said she was running low on Skrilla, and D-Rock just said, oh, do you need money? So, because he did go a little bit out of order, by the way, with some of the RICO predicates, but I just covered obstruction, witness tampering. So just back to Cassie really quickly. He also talked about how Cassie was, quote, nobody's fool. And he said that Diddy really met his match with Cassie as well, in terms of like the fact that she had a burner phone to date Kid Cudi, and that Kid Cudi testified that he felt like he was played and that Diddy was played too by Cassie.
Not to mention when the tape got out and she's talking to her brother, her friend, and threatening to unalive him. Yeah, Cassie, she's not exactly the same person that they tried to portray her as early in this case. Beautiful pregnant woman sitting up there, butter wouldn't melt in her mouth, as my grandmother would say. Yeah, no. She was involved in these escapades, these hotel nights, these wild king nights, in as much, if not more, of a function than Sean Combs. Let me remind you again, Sean Combs is off in the corner somewhere doing his own thing, right? We haven't heard any testimony to dispute that. Sean Combs is over there in the corner getting his man, as they used to say back in the day. He over there getting his man.
hotel room for her burner phone alone. And he's like, why would she do that? Because she knew what she was doing. And then he said, you know, Cassie, if you're looking at Sean Combs and Cassie here, Cassie's the real winner because she's sitting on $30 million and Sean Combs is sitting in federal jail. He also he said Cassie is keeping it gangsta when
keeping it gangsta on that
having
call.
This relationship with Kid Cudi, and that she really would have kept it going had Sean Combs not discovered what happened. And he also encouraged the jury to read their text messages, their breakup text messages, because it would make them cry. And, you know, he said, yeah, that Cassie left because she heard Sean Combs say that Kim Porter was the love of his life at her funeral service, because Cassie went to her funeral service, and then she made...
That's right, because that's when that relationship ended. But anyway, man, this is an interesting case, man, and this is a huge closing argument. We're not quite done yet. I think they're going to give the jury instructions on Monday. But man, it's going down. This is all or nothing, man. Everything's on the table right now. Whether or not Diddy will spend the rest of his life in prison. That's crazy. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Anyway, we're gonna stay tuned and keep up with the trial and see what actually comes of this. But as of now, man, Podcast with Soul is right. I don't see how they could convict when all this doubt is around. But anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification for all uploads. This is Fawcett Media.